to connect with you guys, so I wanted to pop on here and share a few thoughts about some new rules that you can be applying in any of your relationships, but especially this might be a great practice ground to start that. So I wanted to start this dialogue and see what comes through. I'll let a couple of you guys hop on here. I'm open to answering a few questions if there's time. But what I wanted to talk about today is this idea of creating relational safety. We talk about, especially in the rebrand and when I'm working with clients one-on-one, our community members, or even in the conversations that you've seen, the lives that I've done with Andrew, there's a component of emotional safety that is required if you're wanting to bring out the best of someone, especially if the other person is more in their feminine. This is a skill that you have to have and have mastery of. And in one of the conversations I was having last week with one of the one-on-one community members that I was working with, was this idea that you practice the way that you show up for the game. And the results that you're getting are based on the habits that you are practicing. And so my challenge for those of you that are listening to this is to bring this practice to this community. Let it be a space that you can start applying and practicing this skill set so that when you are moving out in the world, whether it be at work or on a date or even just with friends, that muscle is starting to be trained in a way that makes it feel more natural and congruent for you to bring it out in social settings that aren't necessarily ones that you would think to apply this skill set. So without further ado, I wanted to talk a little bit about this ownership piece, especially when it comes to masculine energy. I'm having trouble talking today, man. Especially when it comes to masculine energy, this idea of taking ownership, especially of yourself, is going to be integral in your ability to contain and develop your own masculine energy, and therefore direct it in a way that is not only appropriate for the situation, but also helps you feel the most authentic, the most empowered, the most aligned moving through the world. And part of that is just being responsible for your experience. I'm going to break that down in terms of what that looks like on this platform that you can start practicing. And then we can talk about how that looks out in the world. But part of taking more responsibility for your own experience is being willing to show up in a way that allows the other person to engage with you, as opposed to engaging on your behalf. And this is something that I will own for myself, that is an area that can be challenging. Depending on the dynamic that you are in, there is a tendency to either allow the other person to do more of the emotional labor or social labor. If you didn't watch the live that I did a couple days ago with Andrew Bauer, I would recommend going back and watching that, where we talk about this idea of social intelligence and emotional intelligence, or social labor and emotional labor. And this piece of where you tend to feel strongest is often either where you're going to be overworking and creating too much labor for yourself, and therefore the people around you get to be really lazy, which is what makes you a magnet for the bleeding hearts become the magnets for takers. The givers become the magnet for a taker. That's kind of the dynamic that gets created. Or where you're doing too much of the social labor. Maybe you are more experiential in nature and you're able to really be with people in a social space in a way that helps them feel comfortable, disarms them, and you find yourself feeling a little bit more drained in that space. It's often that you are doing a little bit more or the wrong type of labor. And so getting clear on that is maybe the first step, is really identifying where you are in your preference and where the skill set needs to be developed, but also where you tend to lean one way or the other. Are you asking for other people to do more of the emotional labor instead of being responsible for what's yours? Or are you taking on other people's emotional labor instead of allowing them to receive the empowerment that happens when they learn something new or integrate something new for themselves? So part of what we're going to be practicing here that I want to just level set with you guys is bringing your questions to the comments. I said that want to finish this thought before it leaves my brain, but that this is something that I'm practicing too, because in conversations that I've been having in more of my personal space, it's come to my attention areas where I have been outsourcing some of the additional emotional labor or not leveraging the gifts that other people are creating around me. And so that's the benefit of this, is that not only your relationships start to harmonize and feel more reciprocal, but also gives you the feedback loop of showing up and being able to be purposeful and being intentional about how you are supporting people around you and receiving their support. So back on track. What I am talking about here with being more responsible for your experience specific to the channel is really simple example of asking some good questions. You guys know I always talk about giving a fuck, ask a follow-up question, FUQ. That on dates is an example of you showing up and doing some of the emotional or social labor, depending on kind of how the context is set up. But in this context, asking questions, there's a lot of really great resources that are being offered. Sorry, my throat's a little dry. There's a lot of great resources that are being offered, and as this new content is continuing to come through, it is difficult for you to get what you need from this channel when you're when it would be easier to get what you need from this channel. Let me frame it that way. It would be easier for you to get what you need from this channel to really grow, even if it is just as a community resource on YouTube to grow, if you're willing to ask some specific questions. If you need clarification, nothing lights me up more than engaging with clarifying questions or follow-up questions to add to the conversation. My intention with this channel, with starting this channel, was to create a community space that feels safe and healthy and moves the conversation in a healthy forward direction. When you are willing to lean in and ask questions and really take responsibility for your experience on the channel, it supports that vision of where I want for this to go, to create a space where everyone is taking more accountability for themselves and getting what you need. I can't guess what you need based on a comment or a statement or something that is outside of the reference of the video. But it is easy for me to help deliver more of what you're wanting or needing from this space when you're willing to ask some specific questions or get curious about your experience of the content and share that. I've mentioned a couple times sharing your experience. There's nothing that I enjoy more than reading someone's experience of how this landed for them, how they're integrating it, how they've practiced it, what shifted for them, how they want to use it moving forward. That is incredible, not only for me to read and engage with, but also for other people. It's an invitational space for you to connect with other people, to see how they are growing and learning. And in that same vein, allowing there to be some emotional safety that is created, we are going to be monitoring the comments a little bit more thoroughly. And this is where Andrew's been really helpful with this too, because there are lots of comments that come through, and part of creating a space where we can have more intentional, more in-depth conversations is holding ourselves to be accountable to the type of comments that are being left. And so if they are ones that are not necessarily adding to the conversation or are in some way making it feel like you would be judged or shamed or in any way made unsafe or made wrong for what you're experiencing with the content, whether it is asking a question or whether it is just you sharing your experience and how you're integrating it, those are going to be either muted or removed, because I, again, am wanting to allow this to be a space where you feel comfortable showing up. And part of showing up is on our side, allowing there to be a space with some new rules for relating. And that's what I'm wanting for this channel. This is going to be really helpful when you are going out in the world too, because in the same way where you can ask follow-up questions, you can get really clear on what the other person is intending by asking some clarifying questions. And I know that will make sense for you guys, because I think you guys enjoy clarifying questions. So maybe that word might land a little different than a follow-up question. Very similar. But when you're willing to be curious instead of assuming that you either know the answer and or that you are that you have nothing to apply. It's going to be easier for you to find that connection point. When we do this across from another human, the experience that it creates for them is that they feel really seen and understood, and that they are worth listening to, and that they aren't having to posture in any way, that they can just be who they are, to see and be able to verify if that's the type of person you want to continue connecting with when you can create this space with them. So it's not just about you creating the space, it is a co-creative thing. That we space that's in between is what I'm talking about here. So asking some curious questions, you can practice that here, you can practice that with your friends, you can practice it at work if that is a helpful space where you feel like you can just ask some questions. That might be a little bit more challenging. Just want to acknowledge that sometimes workspaces can be a space where questions aren't necessarily welcomed, and I don't want for that to be the experience that's created on this channel. And so this is really helpful for me. If you guys are willing to engage in this way, that it will help me create a safer space for these conversations to go not only deeper, but also in a new, more helpful direction that I think will give you what you're actually looking for. And then continuing to show up, to lean in, to be either available for some discomfort, whether it's some self-reflection of, oh, I hadn't thought about that. That's not something that I had considered before, but I'm willing to hold it as a valid argument, or not even an argument, but a valid option when I'm thinking through this, or engage with someone else in that way with some graciousness and a little bit of acceptance. Owning what's yours is going to help clean that up, because you can come at it from the space of what you have experienced. You can see it as their experience and also own your experience in it. You can get curious about what they've shared. You can share what has landed for you, what doesn't quite make sense for you, what does make sense for you. All of those things can be really, they create a lot of safety within the emotional landscape. And again, I want to practice it here because this is a public space. There are things that are probably not going to be shared in this forum, but we have spaces that we're building out to allow for more private, more intimate conversations so that you feel comfortable and safe, and we can contain those in a way that allows for that safety to keep flourishing. So I'm really excited for those to be coming, and I will tell you about them as we have those coming through. But as a public platform, to just practice this on your own side, if each of us can take more accountability in this way, it creates a ripple effect that I, for one, am really excited to see happening on the internet. And I think that most people want a space where they can come and share their experience, they can come and be seen and be celebrated and ask questions and really get the information that they need. So part of that is asking some questions, part of it's just showing up, and the other piece is to be willing to engage in a way that sets that as the tone. Holding ourselves accountable for that sets the tone that other people are going to be held to account for that too. And I will be going in, Andrew will be going in and moderating the comments to keep that as safe as possible. So that said, I'm going to be bringing more of the content. If you liked the live stream that I did the other day with Andrew, some of the new rebrand content, I'm going to be putting that in the membership space if you're not already over there, just because it can be a little bit more of an intimate conversation. We have a little bit more containment, more not control, but ability to create that safe space where we can ask the questions and really get to the bottom of things in a way that is more difficult to do on this public side of YouTube. So all that to say, my encouragement or my challenge for this week is, as things are starting to land for you, as things are starting to integrate and digest, part of integration is being able to have a space where you can digest that and allow it to sink in. And my hope or my vision for this space would be that this can be a welcoming community that you can bring all of that to. That said, again, it's a public space, so use your best judgment. But I want to be in the comments celebrating people's integration process, what's working, what you're understanding, what you are practicing out in the world, and bringing back new experiences that have kind of corrected the lens for you. That lights me up so much. And so I want to have more of those be available. And this is kind of what I'm doing to help facilitate that. So I see a couple of you guys are here. I'm happy to answer some questions if you have them. I'll hang out for a few more minutes. Otherwise, this was just something that was coming to me that I wanted to make sure that I communicated as well, because my content is going to start shifting into one that might be a little bit activating for some people, and that's okay. I'm not afraid of people being activated or disagreeing with the content itself, or really having to reflect on and chew on some of the pieces that may have been you operating from a lens that wasn't quite clear. Sometimes that can feel really activating, and that's okay. I'm here for that. And I want for it to be a space where when that does come up, it can be contained by the fact that we have agreed upon how we're going to handle those things. So I don't want that to be a surprise for anybody. And I want for you guys to be able to engage in a way that feels really good and healthy for you. So if there are any questions, I'm here for them. I see a few of you guys here. Thanks for being here live. I love doing these. When they are fresh on my mind, I like to hop on and just hang out with you guys, because it just means a lot to me to be able to do that. So I'd love to hear any questions about this particular practice, how this might look in the offline space. If there are any questions that are coming up about translating this skill into offline, happy to answer those. Otherwise, the content I'm going to keep on Wednesday should look like normal moving forward. So I'm excited for more of that to come through. Let's see here. All right. Well, since I'm not seeing any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. If you have questions around this, if you are willing to engage like this, drop the hands up emoji. I would love to get a roll call, because a few weeks ago when I was talking about the micro initiations, where this kind of came from, the micro initiations video, someone had said that they liked that, they wanted to practice that, and I had this vision of this space being a place where we can come and celebrate the places where we're showing up a little bit more intentionally, where we are seeing ourselves start to evolve into the version of us that is no longer kind of circling this conversation around being a nice guy, or that heart space being too open, having some boundaries. These things actually get reinforced the more that we celebrate them. And as I talk to my one-on-one community members, I would say it's helpful to celebrate, not only because it desensitizes the part of your brain that is maybe afraid of trying something new and messing up. It kind of corrects that experience for you, but also it reinforces the fact that, hey, this is something to pay attention to. It tells your brain, pay attention here, because this is like where we want to keep going. And so whenever I am celebrating with them, it is with the intention of just opening up a new part of your own conversation, and that's kind of the goal with this too. So thank you guys for being here. I'm so grateful that I get to share all of these things with you, and I'm excited for the new content that's coming through. If you want a more contained space where you can really dive into not only some new ways of thinking, but also relax and get some feedback and really correct a few of those things that need some fine-tuning, that is often best done in a one-on-one context where we can have that contained space where you can experience what it needs to feel like in your body. That's when things really shift in place and you start moving through the world as a totally different person. Obviously, it's always you, but it is the unfiltered version of you. It's the more authentic, more congruent, more confident, naturally. That version of you gets to move through the world because of the experience of having that level of emotional safety, that level of containment, and that level of intentionality that we put into those spaces. So I want to bring more of that here, because I want this to be a little space where we can practice some of these skills together. That's my goal. So thank you guys for being here. I will talk to you guys soon. I hope you're having a really great weekend, and I will see you next week.